Hello everybody, this is your social studies video for today, Tuesday, June 2nd. When we left off last week, we left off talking about a pamphlet, a document called Common Sense. So I'm just going to review that real quick in case you guys forgot. So this is the page where we left off last week, okay? Common Sense was a little tiny book written by a man named Thomas Paine, and he put it into words that common people could understand why we needed to be independent. Okay, so he talked about independence and why we should have the freedom to choose our own government and things like that. And that really is what sparked the Declaration of Independence and kind of was the beginning of that. Okay, so now we're on page 162. You see this picture. It's Thomas Jefferson is standing. That's Benjamin Franklin, and that's John Adams. Okay, they're all looking over the draft of the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so a government of our own. Members of the Second Continental Congress also read Common Sense. By the spring of 1776, many of them agreed that it was time to declare independence from Great Britain. In June, Richard Henry Lee, a representative from Virginia, asked Congress to vote on independence. Before holding the vote, though, Congress wanted to have a written document declaring independence and explaining why it was necessary. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston were chosen as the committee or group to create the document. Jefferson was only 33 years old at the time, but people knew he was intelligent, educated, and a good writer. Because of these qualities, the committee asked him to do the actual writing. "You could write 10 times better than I can," Adams told Jefferson. "Well, if you are decided, I will do as well as I can," Jefferson replied. Jefferson spent time crafting the document on his own. He then shared his draft with Adams and Franklin. They helped Jefferson making comments and suggesting changes. 2 weeks later, Thomas Jefferson presented the rewritten document to Congress, and then Congress made their own changes, which included removing a strongly worded attack on slavery. So that's kind of interesting. Jefferson he had a whole section there. Slavery was evil and, it should be, eventually outlawed. For whatever reason, I guess the southern, part of Congress voted to take that out of the Declaration of Independence, I should say, which is kind of sad. Once these and the other changes were made, Congress had its finished document. It was called the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so if you look at number 2, it says, "This painting shows Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson working together on the Declaration of Independence. Write why you think it was helpful to have a group work together to create this document." So think about it. Why would it be helpful to have several people write the document rather than just one person? So basically, if one person's writing the document, that leaves them open to a lot of criticism from other people, okay? So you have a couple of people that are chosen. They could bounce ideas off of each other, make suggestions, like, maybe rephrase things, reword things. And then they finally submitted it to Congress, and then they made further editing. That's how it works, okay? So that's kind of a hint how you would answer number 2. So I want you to write why you think it was helpful to have a group work together to create this document rather than just one person, okay? So now, page 163, it says the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson began by explaining why the colonies should become independent. He spoke about people's rights or freedoms that cannot be taken away. Many of his ideas were inspired by John Locke, who was an Englishman. Locke believed that governments are created in order to protect people's rights. So Jefferson wrote, this is going to be some excerpts of the actual Declaration of Independence. We hold, I'm on the first box here, okay? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's probably one of the most famous lines. You know, when you hear about America, you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, okay? It says for number 3, three rights that Jefferson says that people are born with, okay? That they're, you know, when they say endowed by their Creator, he means God, okay? The language here is a little, it's old English, so let me break it down so you guys could understand it. So we hold these truths to be self-evident. It kind of means we hold these truths to be obvious, okay? It speaks for itself, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed, meaning they're given by their Creator, God, certain rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you know, the chance to be happy, okay? So 3 rights that Jefferson says people are born with, okay? All men are created equal. Men are created equal. Liberty and pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness. Okay, so those are 3 rights that he says we're all born with. Okay, we're all men are created equal, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. All right. Then Jefferson then said that if a government tries to take away these rights, people should be able to create a new government, he wrote. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute or put in place a new government. Okay, so when any form of government, and he's referring specifically to the King of Great Britain, becomes destructive or takes advantage of their power, it's the right of the people to get rid of this government. That's what abolish means, to get rid of, okay? And form a new government. So number 4 says, right, what Jefferson said the people have a right to do when their government stops protecting their rights. And they have, like I just said, they have a right to create a new government. Okay? Or, well, it's 2 steps. End current government. And create a new government. Okay. And the current government, if they're abusing their power, and they have the right to create a new government for themselves. Okay. Jefferson lists of grievances or complaints recorded ways that the King George III had tried to take away the colonists' rights. These included, he has refused to assent, which means agree, to laws the most wholesome and necessary for public good. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislators. For imposing taxes on us without our consent, he has plundered, which is robbed, our seas, ravaged our coasts, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. Okay, so he is accusing the king of refusing to listen to the colonists of fair laws, okay? And then the second part, he is kept among us in times of peace, standing armies. Remember the Quartering Act. Nobody was at war, but yet he had armies kind of intimidating, Boston, mainly Boston, and they called them redcoats, the British soldiers, marching around, with guns. And then he imposed taxes on them without, asking them, and, unfairly so. He taxed everything to pay for the cost of the French and Indian War. So it says for number 5, it says choose one of these accusations against the king and describe an event that fits this example. All right, so let's do the taxes. That's the big one, okay? Taxation without representation, okay? Taxation without representation. So an example would be the Tea Act, Stamp Act. That's good enough. Okay. So we could write taxation without representation, as we talked about before, and Tax Act and the Stamp Act. Okay. All right, let's go on to page 164. The last part of the Declaration said that because Great Britain had tried to take away their rights, the colonies had the right to become a separate country, to be called the United States of America. These are the words Jefferson used. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, and they have full power to levy, which means begin war, conclude peace, contract alliances or partnerships, establish commerce, which is trade, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. So, again, breaking this down, he's saying they're broken away from Great Britain. We are the United States of America now. We are our own government, okay? We ought to be free and we're independent, okay? We have full power to wage war just like any other country, make peace, establish alliances or partnerships with other countries, trade with other countries. So yeah, that's what, basically breaking that down, that's what that means. So for number 6, actually you guys don't have to do that. It says describe the powers that the new nation has according to the Declaration. I just told you that. After this section, each of the members of the Second Continental Congress signed the Declaration of Independence. John Hancock, the President of Congress, signed it first with the largest signature. So that's his famous for that. If you ever see a reprint of the Declaration of Independence, his signature stands way out. I don't know why he did that. I don't know if it's because he was the president of the Congress, so maybe he felt like his signature should be the biggest. But anyway, it's become a famous thing over time. Okay, so now next topic, a brave step. Congress voted to approve the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. People throughout the colony celebrated the event by cheering, ringing bells, and even tearing down statues of King George III. The members of Congress signed it in August. The signers knew that what they were doing could cause them grave personal hardship. That means they could go through a lot of trouble. They could be accused of treason, which is the crime of fighting against one's own country. If they were found guilty, they could be hanged. The fate or future of the new country now depended on the Americans who would sacrifice to win the war for independence. So just because they declared independence doesn't mean Britain wants to let go of the colonies. So that's why in Britain's mind, in the king's mind, they're still British subjects and they're traitors, and they could be hanged for that. In 1776, the phrase "all men are created equal" did not apply to everyone in society. The rights of women, African Americans, and Native Americans were not recognized as they are today. But the Declaration was a significant step forward for individual rights. Okay, showing a picture of colonists celebrating Declaration with tearing down statues of King George. It's a statue of him on a horse. They're, pulling it down. Okay, so on to page 165. It says the Declaration established the idea that the United States government would be based on the ideas of freedom, equality, and protecting people's rights. The story of American history ever since 1776 has in many ways been the story of how the promise of the Declaration of Independence has shaped our nation. This is a replica, it says, of a printing press used to print copies of the Declaration of Independence. You can see how big of a machine it was. But not like the modern printing presses that are, electronic and digital. So that's going to the next point. Riders carried copies to people in distant colonies. There wasn't cars, there wasn't internet or anything like that. So it says write how people share important documents today. We share them through email, mostly online. Some people still even read newspapers, but a lot of people get their news online or on TV. So the main idea of the Declaration of Independence was first, declaring that they were free from the king and from Great Britain, and then that they were their own government and they had the right to do what every other country was doing. Okay, they had the right to trade, like I said, partnerships with other countries. So that's it says a brave step. That was the first step, to declare independence. We're done with Britain. Okay, but there's already been fighting, but that means that we have to fight for it. Like I said, Great Britain isn't just going to give up all these colonies and all these riches. Next time we're gonna talk about some of the battles and hardships that the soldiers went through and their families went through and the sacrifices they made. So we're living in the United States today. Otherwise, we would be still under rule of Great Britain, and we wouldn't have our flag or anything like that. So it's pretty significant. I hope you guys enjoyed and understood. I was able to break it down a little bit, and you were able to understand it. And we'll pick this up on Thursday. Okay, great. Thanks for watching.